Hey, just on Tuesday caravanning, thinking about real estate and things like that. And one of the topics that comes up often when you meet with people or when you uh, talk to buyers or sellers, they want to work with experts, right? And I want to work with a neighborhood expert or expert of whatever city you're in. And a lot of people think if an agent lives in a certain neighborhood, they've got to be an expert, right? Which is kind of okay. If you live there, you should know the neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily mean you're an expert in things that involve a real estate transaction. So, one of the most important things, sorry, working on this thing, is to have a definition of what an expert is. Okay, so what is an expert to me? Um, with real estate, I think you have to be up to date and know markets and value, essentially pricing. What are things worth? What does that look like? What does each price point look like? So markets and value. What's the absorption rate? Things like that, right? Second um, point of expertise is marketing, right? How are you going to market the home? Are you going to stick a sign in front of the house and then stick it on the multiple listing service and that's your marketing plan? Or, take all your company provided stuff and put it on the internet and then watch it work? Or are you going to reach out to buyers? Do you have a profile of a specific buyer that's looking for that house in that neighborhood? What do they look like? Where do they shop? What do they do? So have a buyer profile. Experts have a buyer profile so they know who to target with the marketing, not just marketing at random. And third, there's a few more points, but the last one I'll leave you with is negotiation. Okay, once you know, you know markets and value, you know your benchmarks, metrics, whatever you want to call them, you should be able to negotiate well, right? And to differentiate what's a good offer, what's a bad offer, what kind of timelines are we looking at, all those things, right? So you can evaluate whether an offer is good or not and advise your client accordingly. So, this thing about being an expert, it's more about, knowing markets and value, knowing how to reach those buyers that could buy those houses, right? Or if you're working with a buyer, like how do you find the sellers with those houses? And then lastly, like how do you negotiate a deal? You know, how do you get it done, right? What do you need to do to get it done? So I think, really need to think about using that word. It's a big word that we don't really think about. We just say, oh, I live here, I'm an expert. Well, there's a little more to it than just living in a neighborhood or knowing a neighborhood or visiting a few houses in that neighborhood. So, my 2 cents, but I think the crux of this is if you're looking for an expert or if you're going to call yourself an expert, you have to have a definition of what it is so you know and how to differentiate between who's an expert and who's not. So let me know what you think. Just wanted to throw that out there, but I'll talk to you guys later.